So did you work today?
Yeah.
We're good? I would like to call to order the Monday, March 16th meeting of the City of Monona Finance and Personnel Committee. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Kitzler.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 2nd meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or additions?
No.
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There are no appearances. There is no unfinished business. Under new business, item 6A, discussion of potential amendment to personnel policy manual regarding addition of Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a paid holiday. Is there a motion? Are we going to take a motion on this, or is it just a discussion?
Discussion topic only at this point.
Okay. Who's going to address this then?
Leah's got some data for you, but just a little bit of context. So this item came up through kind of two different fashions. One, we heard from Alder Wood and Alder Kitzler that wanted it on the agenda for discussion tonight, and it has been a topic that's come up for discussion amongst department heads over the last couple of weeks. So we thought we'd bring you at least some initial data on what we know today, with the understanding that this may change a little bit over the next couple of weeks as we get into budget season for 2021.
Alder Kitzler, I apologize with the craziness that we've had with the coronavirus at City Hall. I didn't get a chance to email this to you ahead of time, but I will email it to you first thing in the morning. But you have, I think, pretty much seen these.
I can't really hear her.
Oh. Sorry. Should I come over there?
Not your fault.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to many people, and it's a very, very, very long list. Our administration, superintendent on down through building
Oh, is
principals.
that something from the program then?
Hi, Alder Kitzler. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was saying that I apologize with all the craziness that has been come along with the coronavirus the last 2 days. I put together some numbers and I just didn't have a chance to email them to you. So I think you've kind of seen these numbers already, but I will get them to you first thing in the morning. So I was asked to put together estimated costs for adding a holiday to the city's roster of holidays. So just a few things to consider. For many departments, for salaried employees, holidays won't really cost us anything in terms of, holidays are just part of their annual salary. But for police officers, dispatchers, and our firefighter paramedics, they actually receive a payout for all of their holidays unless they actually use that holiday for time off another time of the year. So we do a payout on like November 30th of every year with all their unused holiday time. So that is something we need to consider in terms of the estimated cost for adding a holiday. And then in addition, those employees who work on a holiday are paid at time and a half. So that's the other cost consideration for holidays. So sort of taking the average hourly rate for each of these departments and the current number of employees who would be affected in those departments between police, fire, and dispatch, I'm estimating for 2020 adding a holiday would be an estimated cost of about $13,300 in holiday pay and then overtime for those who work the holiday. And then one other thing to take into consideration with Martin Luther King Day in particular, which is in January, if we were to get a snowstorm on that day and we'd have to call in our public works crews, they would get paid a time and a half for working on a holiday. So one plow pass on all our city streets for just a general snowstorm, average snowstorm, requires a crew of 5 employees and takes approximately 6 hours. So that's about $1,125 in cost if that were to happen.
So total is about $14,500.
Yep, with a snowstorm. And then obviously those costs are based on hourly rates, so as hourly rates go up, those costs would go up as well on an annual basis.
Discussion?
So I can go first. if that's okay, Andy. Do you hear me?
Are you, sorry, I'm talking, I can't hear him.
Yeah, he's asking if he can go first.
Oh, sure.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Do you want to come over here, Doug?
I guess.
Sorry.
Suppose everybody has to get a computer and put them on there, just so we can hear everybody.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So a couple comments, I guess first, just because that was, the costs were brought up. My understanding would be the police and fire would have to be negotiated in their labor agreement.
Correct.
So that wouldn't necessarily take place in 2021. Sort of the reason this was brought up in the first place was an email that we got from Toya Robinson, the City of Monona Municipal Court Clerk. And just I think part of what really caught my attention was that I'll just read part of what she said, that this small but significant step in making this a holiday will change the narrative of how Monona is viewed and will most definitely put the city on the map as one who stands in solidarity for equality and fairness for all. And I would, Toya is African American, and I think that maybe is a bit of, the narrative of how Monona is viewed is maybe something that I wasn't, necessarily particularly aware of. And beyond that, I think this would be an expression of the values of the city of Monona. And for me personally, the cost estimate, assuming that it got changed in this collective bargaining agreements, would be a price that I'd be willing to have the taxpayers pay. So.
Andy, did you have? I know.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Alderwood had said. I think this is, I don't want to say small because I think that's underestimating the value and impact of this holiday, but I believe that this is another way that Monona can, express their values, as Alderwood says. And I believe, this is an important holiday that a number of institutions have off. I quickly try to do a little survey of cities around, but it's hard to figure out what cities in the Dane County area or surrounding areas, what days they have off and different things like that. So I'd be interested if Leah had maybe a consortium of people that she could reach out to really quick. But that said, I think nonetheless, you're probably bored of hearing me say it. I think this is another way that Monona can lead by example and show our employees that we value this holiday for many reasons, one of which we value diversity and equity. I think her email heightened that awareness, and I think this year in particular was a year where I had the day off from my employer, and I was kind of thinking about, it's really interesting that the city employees still have to work, and obviously we have the essential services that the city has to provide, but I think we can show our employees, these are our values, and this is what we're, where we're putting it at the forefront, whether it's budgetarily or just programmatically of putting this in the policy. So, I think, as Alderwood said, I think the cost estimates is something that I think we can handle and I would be fine with. I think this year in particular, obviously it wouldn't have any cost this year, so it would be something that you'd talk about next year. But I think this is something that we could take action on and then budget for in the next year. So those are just my quick comments.
Can I say something? Can you hear me, Andy? Can you hear me?
Very faintly.
Apparently not. I will try to talk kind of loud, okay? Can you hear me now?
Okay.
I am in total agreement with everything you just said. However, I would prefer that we wait until later in the year to consider this. For one thing, it won't be happening until next January anyway, and as Mark will be explaining in a little while, we have some real concerns about the budget given all this coronavirus situation, and I just hate to, I know it's probably only a couple thousand for 2021, but I'd rather wait till we have a little better idea of what the situation is. And I don't see any reason to rush into it. I mean, if we could, like I said, we could consider it as part of the budget. We can, I certainly would support it if, you know, it looks like we don't have a complete disaster on our hands here. So those are my thoughts. Anyone else? Doug?
Hey, one question, procedural question. Is the amendment of the personnel manual, is that strictly up to personnel and finance, or does that have to go to city council?
The amendment has to be approved by the committee, and then I think it just goes to council for their kind of blanket adoption of the book.
Okay. I don't recall my recollection, and it could very well be inaccurate, is that when we went through the last overhaul of it, and when Pat Marsh was here, probably fairly early into the time when he was here, I don't think the whole council looked at it, but you know, I could be wrong.
No, I think they did that.
They did? Okay, well, I'm wrong. Okay.
And any amendments that have been made since then were approved by the council.
Okay, cool, all right.
I would think if it's an additional expenditure, it would have to be, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, okay, that's a good point.
Yeah. Anything else, Doug?
Nope.
Andy? Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, we will go on to 6B, discussion of potential amendment to personnel policy manual regarding sick leave accumulation limit. Leah, were you going to address this as well, or? Mm-hmm. Okay.
You need me to go over there so Andy can hear?
Yeah, I suppose.
Or just pass the computer around.
Oh, sorry.
So I put together just some quick numbers on where our employees currently stand with the amount of sick leave accumulation cap that they're at. All of our represented employees, so all of our police officers and our firefighters, per their labor contracts, have their sick leave accumulation caps at 840 hours. And in addition to that, they also have written into their contracts that once they are at their sick leave accumulation cap, they have the ability to get a portion of their unused sick leave for the year paid out once they're at the cap. So in terms of our non-represented employees, we have two different caps for two different groups of employees. So employees who were hired previous to March 11th, 2005 are at the 840-hour cap, 840 hours, which is 105 days. And employees who are hired after that date are at the 680-hour cap, which is 85 days. So right now, of the non-represented employees that we have, 37 employees are at the 85-day cap and 16 are at the 105-day cap. So when I combine all of the represented employees with the non-represented employees, so all of our employees, including our public safety employees, we're sort of about half and half. So we have 40 employees at the 105-day cap and 37 at the 85-day cap. I can pull numbers for you on sort of how many employees are currently at the cap They just didn't have time to do that for this meeting, so.
And what are we looking at in terms of this? Will this increase the payout when they retire? Is that correct?
So currently, our sick leave conversion policy says that employees upon retirement they have to be eligible for retirement from the city. But when they retire, they are allowed to convert the amount of their accumulated sick leave up to the cap to dollars, which is based on their wage at the time of retirement. And then they're allowed to use that money either to pay for healthcare premiums, or we take that money and put it into a 457 retirement plan.
Okay. Questions, anyone?
Just maybe a little bit of context. The reason why we're bringing this up for discussion is this came up as one of the potential concerns when we were talking about the parental care policy. The parental care policy solves one issue for long-serving staff. There's a separate issue of the amount of sick leave that they are able to bank on a go-forward basis. So the department has asked that we bring up this separate issue for finance personnel to consider separately from the parental care policy.
Because right now, non-represented employees who are at their cap just don't earn sick leave anymore unless they use it, and then they earn it up until the cap again, so.
But they can still, they can use it, can't they? I thought that
Yeah.
they use it, don't they? If they've reached the cap, they just don't save anymore. It
Correct.
just is, it's not that they don't earn it. Is that right? It's that if they don't use it as sick leave, it doesn't apply to this retirement benefit.
No, once they're at the cap, they don't earn additional hours anymore.
They don't?
They do not.
Okay.
Well, if they use some, fall below the cap,
Right, if
then
they
they
fall below
start.
the cap. So if they're at the cap and then, they have a sick day, they use 8 hours and they can earn 8
Okay,
more.
I get it.
But, correct.
And that's what happens quite a bit,
Yes.
isn't it? Right. Andrew, are you hearing things? Oh, now we're not hearing you.
Oh,
Okay,
that's not good.
now we can hear you.
Now we can hear you now.
Are you hearing me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Very faintly.
Ah.
There's a lot of feedback.
Okay. And we're getting some feedback just from ourselves.
So I have a question, maybe Brian or Leah, you can just repeat it for Andrew. Are all of the non-represented, or all of the represented employees, what cap do they have?
So Doug just asked what cap do all of our represented employees have. All of our public safety employees for perfect payout have a cap at 105 days. Our fire employees are actually allowed to accumulate up to 980 hours of sick leave, but their cap for payout is still at 840 hours.
Okay.
That was negotiated, I believe, in their last contract, because if they take a sick day, for them, it's generally 24 hours of sick leave, as opposed to 8 hours for a regular employee.
We're bringing this up because the worry is with the paid family care that more employees would hit their max.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So we really won't see an impact from this until people retire, is that right?
So Mary's asking if we would see an impact from this before people retire. Financially, no.
Okay. But we need to think about what it might mean. Okay.
You said financially no, is there some other cost that we might incur? Some other impact?
Alder Wood just asked if there's any other costs that we might incur non-financially. I mean, you know, the more sick leave you give to an employee, I guess the more sick leave they have to take. So I guess that would really be the only cost.
On the other hand, they might be more inclined to save it and not use it because they're trying to get to that higher
Right.
level.
So I'll just say this really briefly. I'd like to see us get everybody up to at least to the 840. Whether we do that, you know, all in one, at one time, or I'm not sure if it makes sense really to, you know, do it in steps, or if it really matters. But I'd like to have the non-represented employees on the same footing. Could you hear that, Andrew?
Yeah, that seems fair.
Oh.
Yeah, that seems fair. I agree.
I think we're there. So this is something else that would be in the employee handbook?
That would likely be the best place to.
Yeah.
Okay. So both of these things, it makes sense to do at the same time if we're
Yeah,
going to do
and I
it.
should say there is a package of other kind of assorted changes to the personnel handbook that various department heads have raised over the last couple of months. So that's probably the best place is once we get maybe into the budget discussion, we have a separate discussion about a number of these different items. We'll probably introduce them to the Personnel and Finance Committee kind of on a one-off type of scenario like this, and then wrap them all together for kind of a package of items to discuss at a later date.
Okay. Yeah, because there's several that we haven't really even discussed.
Right.
Okay. Anything else? How does that sound, Andy? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Great. I think we've got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And Doug, did you have anything else?
No.
Moving down to item 6, we removed several items related to parks because Jake is not able to attend tonight, so we'll just deal with those at a future meeting. Item 6G, discussion and consideration of staffing, financial and city operations contingency plans for COVID-19, and we've been spending a lot of time, Brian and the staff in particular, especially on this issue for the last several days. So Brian and Mark are going to give you an update on several different items.
Yeah, so, and I'll repeat the same information for the council at the full meeting here in a little bit, but what I want to do for both bodies is kind of lay out where we've been and some of the things that we're going to need action and discussion on tonight to go forward. So the action items for council, specifically tonight, that I need council input on is there is a draft resolution declaring a local state of emergency. This is following with all of the various other state, county, and federal declarations that have been going on in the last couple of days. The main purpose of this is really to set the city up so that we can document any expenditures that we might have related to this and submit to FEMA for reimbursement. That will be on for discussion with the full council after 7 p.m. Andy, I did send you a copy of that draft resolution that I will hand out to the council here later tonight. And the second item, which is more specific to finance and personnel, but we'll also discuss with the council, is a staffing and payment plan for all employees. And by that I mean full-time, part-time, and seasonal for regular wages over the next 2 weeks. As you can imagine, there's been a lot of concern and nervousness and anxiety from all staff at all departments about what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, particularly for those that are affected by closures of their facilities or departments until further notice. So one of the things that we've been talking about internally is how do we kind of balance the city's operational needs, but also provide some peace of mind for those employees that, for a whole host of reasons, either cannot work because they might potentially be, might test positive, or immune compromised, or have daycare or other child care concerns during this time, or are not able to physically be in the office because their office is closed. And so we'll talk about this in more detail in just a minute, but I'm suggesting that at least for the next 2-week period that we pay all staff, regardless of classification, their standard wage for the next 2 weeks. and then we can reevaluate at that time if we need to extend that period on a go-forward basis. We do, and you've seen some of this communication from us over the last couple of days. We've been very proactive, as have a number of other communities around the area, in communicating what we know to our residents and our visitors about this ongoing public health emergency. Our main responsibility in this crisis is to be a conduit of information for everyone else. We are not the scientific experts in this sense, but it's our job to provide a non-biased source of information for our residents. So to that effect, we set up a separate page on our website, mymonona.com/coronavirus, which is really a landing page for information where we post things as we receive it from Dane County Public Health, Dane County Emergency Management, state, CDC, and other resources. We posted all of our closures of facilities on there and any other information that we receive. We are actively utilizing our social media and other avenues to get this information out. We've been recording multiple PSAs with WVMO to update the information as it becomes available. And we've utilized the emergency alert email listserv to send information out over that, which is similar to what we did during the 2018 flooding events. So communication is something we will be doing probably on a daily basis with people as new information comes in. In terms of city facilities and operations, we've, like many other communities, had to make very tough decisions about closing a number of facilities that would be normally open to the public. So just to kind of run down those closures, the community center is closed effective immediately. All park and rec programs and classes are canceled until further notice. The after-school program is also canceled until further notice. All scheduled meetings and reservations at the community center are canceled, and all city park shelters will remain closed until further notice. The Monona Public Library closed yesterday at 5 p.m. and will remain closed until further notice. This includes all programs, events, and meeting room reservations. Senior Center is also closed, as is all programming, until further notice. The Public Works facility is open and operational, but closed to public visitation. Utility staff will not be conducting in-home visits. City Hall remains open to the public. However, we would like to encourage residents and users to conduct as much of their business over the phone or email as possible and limit their in-person visits for the protection of other visitors and city staff. And then the municipal court will be rescheduling as much of its current docket to May as possible. So in terms of general city operations, there are a couple of things that we are working on that I wanted to bring you up to speed on. First is our general meetings of our city committees. It's my recommendation and a strong recommendation that all city council committee chairs consider cancellation of any non-essential committee meetings until further notice to limit additional in-person contacts, particularly as that will impact staff if they're being required to be physically at these committee meetings. We are also reviewing what types of licenses and permits that we can delay the time frame on or address online to limit the number of walk-in traffic that we get in City Hall. And we're trying to stock as much cleaning and disinfectant material in all of our facilities as possible, with the understanding that it's very difficult to come across a lot of that material at present. And then we are requesting that building inspections and code enforcement refrain from entering any residence or structure for inspections at this time. Exterior inspections are still okay, and we're waiting on additional guidance from the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Professional Services as to how they want us to handle requests for things like final inspection and other inspections kind of during this period. In addition, there's been a big question about what does the virus have an impact on the upcoming April election. So as of today, the information that we have is that the Wisconsin Election Commission has said that the spring election will occur as scheduled. The Wisconsin Election Commission and the county clerks are encouraging everyone to vote via mailed absentee ballot, if possible, to reduce the number of in-person voting. So we will be doing our part to communicate that out to our residents, and as can be expected, we've seen a great uptick in requests for mailed ballots today. As an example, about 300 today alone. But the caveat, just so everyone understands, that with an increase in the number of absentee ballot requests, there'll be an increase in the amount of turnaround time for staff to get the ballots mailed out. And there is a general statewide concern over the the amount of ballot envelopes that are available to get these ballots out in the mail. So then that leads me to the most important item for finance personnel tonight, the discussion of staffing and wage for staff during this response. As I mentioned, the most frequent questions that we've been getting over the last couple of days have been, if my department or building is closed, will I still get paid? What if I or a family member happen to test positive? And what if my daycare or child care arrangements close because of all this? How will I be impacted? So first and foremost, administrative staff is definitely sensitive to this difficult time for employees, for all employees. And I think it's important to be as accommodating as possible during this unique and unexpected situation. So as such, I am recommending that the Finance and Personnel Committee and the City Council support the following staffing accommodations plan that has department head support from our discussion earlier this morning. First, provide standard pay for all employees, full-time, part-time, seasonal, etc., for the next 2 weeks based upon their current schedules or an average of their regular schedules, regardless if their department is currently open or closed. Second, if an employee were to test positive or there was another reason for them to be confined for a 2-week period, those 2 weeks would not count against their paid time off balances. Third, if employees' daycare or child care situation would change because of the virus and require them to stay home to care for their children, the time off would not count towards their PTO balances for the next 2 weeks. There's a general concern among department heads about requiring employees who would be considered high risk for the virus to get exposed reporting to city facilities. So where feasible, department heads will allow employees to work remotely or telecommute for those that have the capability or appropriate job responsibilities. And where feasible and safe, department heads may ask some staff members to report to city facilities to work on projects that do not require general public contact until such time as the emergency declarations are lifted. As this is a fluid situation, we may need to request extending these accommodations beyond this initial 2-week period, so we will try to keep Personnel and Finance Committee and the Council informed. And lastly, as you've seen in the news, there is discussions on the federal level about a proposal for a 2-week pay plan. However, that has not gotten before the Senate yet, so we remain in a wait-and-see period for that. So I'm happy to pause for a moment and take your comments and questions about the operational and staffing items that I've raised here tonight.
I'll say I'm very supportive of the plan that you guys laid out. I think it's comprehensive. I think it provides flexibility to our city employees. You know, this is an unprecedented time. The one thing that kind of raised a flag maybe for me was the comment about department heads potentially requiring staff to come in if it did not include public interaction, but I would also make sure that we're thinking about the interaction with other employees and keeping that to a minimum. So that's, you know, one of the pieces of feedback that I guess I have.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about that at the department head meeting this morning, and department heads would be empowered to make those determinations on how many employees they would ask to come in. And again, this would be doing, you know, projects that are more long-term in mind, that are not on the front burner right now, but we could use the help on. So inventory, that type of stuff.
Or even the election,
Yeah,
possibly.
potential assistance with elections, things like that. So as we move through the next 2 weeks, we'll kind of fine-tune what that may or may not look like.
One thing also that came up today was that they don't all have to be jammed in at City Hall. Some of them could be at the library's empty, community center. There's some big spaces where people could spread out also. So, I'm sorry, Andy, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I just want to provide you guys, you know, the most flexibility possible to do what you have to do in these times. So I like what you laid out, and you know, if there's other flexibility that we can provide you, I think that's important.
Doug?
Well, so I agree with Andrew and definitely supportive of what you outlined. And I think with regard to supervisors calling in people to work, I think both they and the employee have the same concern about being exposed, right? So I would suggest we make it 3 weeks, just because the council won't meet again for 3 weeks after today. it is, yeah, these are, it's completely unprecedented, and I don't think anybody living really has been through this kind of pandemic. And it's, I've been really encouraged by a lot of the actions, both the city, as painful as some of them are, to shut down programs and not do the things that you guys are all here to do. But it's absolutely necessary to do it now, not tomorrow. I just hope that the general public is getting that. I think to some extent they are, but I just passed this on. I went to the grocery store today. There was lots of product, not everything, but most things. But people were standing in long lines to check out, and somehow we have to not do that. People have to, I don't know how you do that. I think for me, I'm just going to look and see how long the lines are when I get to the store. If they're long, don't go in. And just avoid any exposure to crowds, because there's a lot more people carrying this than we know of because of the lag in testing. And apparently people do shed the virus before they show any symptoms. Mm-hmm. It's very, very contagious. So, anyway.
Yeah, I agree with Alder Wood's recommendation to move it to 3 weeks since we're not meeting until then.
Okay, then I'll modify my comments to the council later this evening to include 3 weeks.
Do we need a motion for that here? And I guess we want Mark to report also.
Yeah. So
Should I have a motion first, or?
let's do that first. And then
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll move to
approve.
I'll second. I'm assuming that includes the 3 weeks instead of 2.
Correct.
So that'd be through April 5th, I guess, or 6th. Okay, Mark?
April 6th, I believe.
I don't have much other than there will be a financial effect. It will affect us this year and for 2021. The biggest thing is a couple of big things is interest income. The interest income was really we're getting about $400,000 in the last couple of years, or $400,000, and we'll probably, if you know, the rates are just cut again to basically zero, the feds. So we're probably going to bottom out here fairly quick. We could have about a $150,000 to $200,000 loss in our interest income. Other things will be affected. We'll be paying for people, like we just talked about. There'll be no revenue coming in to pay for those, especially for the rec programs that are kind of, the revenue offsets the expenses. We won't have that, so we'll be going in the hole there too. All in all, this will probably be, since I've been here, at the end of the year, will probably be our worst year. Our fund balance is basically 30%. We'll really dig into that. We'll bring it down a lot. This last year, 2019, we'll go with financials, was probably our best year, and this year will probably be our worst year. And what's going to happen for next year, for 2021, is our interest income is going to take a long time to build back up again. The rates will take a while because we'll probably head into a little bit, they're saying maybe a recession. So really our levy increase will cover probably what our interest income decrease is going to be. So we're going to look at basically a very, very tight budget next year. I mean, basically kind of almost a 0% increase type budget next year. So there will be some type things. So I don't know if it's something we want to look at this year, to be cut back this year already and start to say, we need a department heads cut back a certain percent. Are we going to use the fund balance? So I think that's something we need to probably look into here in the near future, is how we want to figure those out. We do have the large fund balance right now, but it is going to be a very tight, it's going to be a loss this year no matter what. We'll lose a ton of money this year. So this is mainly going to carry over to next year, so we just got to kind of figure out how much of that fund balance we're willing to go before we start saying we're going to cut some of these programs back, especially with the rec department and some other areas where
And the after-school care
After
is
school care.
huge.
Losing the after-school care losing that is a bigger one, because we do generate extra revenue, and that actually offsets a lot of different programs for Jake. So that's another issue that's going on right now, so.
And then we don't know how the room tax,
The room tax, yep, the room
that's
tax
going to
is
take
another
a hit
one.
most likely.
Most likely that's going to hit us, too. Well, I don't have once we get the first quarter numbers, we'll kind of have an idea, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming room tax is going to be down for the first quarter at least for that, so.
Yeah, we may have to consider like hiring freezes for some positions. I don't know, at least initially.
Yeah,
things
so that's
like
some of
that.
the things we'll probably have to figure out where we're going to
Yeah.
do and project how much we're really going to lose here, so.
Any input from you two?
Yeah, I think we're looking at a lot of what Donald Rumsfeld called unknowns. If we don't know what we don't know, then there's something, I think it would be possible, there could be some legislative relief, but who knows? We'd have no idea.
Or we may not get it when we need it,
Right,
or,
yeah. I assume that our borrowing capital cost will be lower?
Should be very low.
Yeah,
like
I mean, that's
zero.
what they're staying right now, so.
right. I guess, obviously, we're not going to be doing a lot of programs that don't make money. In fact, that maybe lose money. But the after-school program helps pay for those. But I think, we'll probably have a better sense of where we are in another month.
Because it will affect, depends how far it drags on, what happens with the pool and stuff like that, we'll have to really
Right.
look into, so.
Yeah, I don't know. But, some things, we probably should look at, like a hiring freeze, unless it's an essential position. I will say, I said this to the mayor yesterday when I ran into her at the library, that if there was ever something that qualified as a emergency need to use the fund balance for, this is it.
Correct.
So I have no problem using that, and that's why we built it up. Unfortunately, we have it, well above what our policy is.
Yes.
Is it actually at 30% now? I thought we had budgeted to use it.
Yeah, based on
fairly
these
decent
numbers
chunk.
I got just recently, we go with the financials, and I was doing it kind of Friday. We're basically, we take out what we use for fund balance 2020 and some of the stuff that are coming in for 2019. We're at 30%. So.
Even having taken some out to use in 2020?
Yeah.
Wow.
We kind of go over the 2019 numbers.
Yeah.
We budgeted for a huge loss. Basically doubling instead of having a $600,000 loss, we have a $600,000 gain. So it's a
that's
$2 million swing. So.
very fortunate.
But yeah, we just had a lot of things just hit this last year, and we had a lot of people, positions were left, so you had some vacant positions. So there's a little, revenues and the expenses. So.
Well, any further discussion about this? And then we'll go on to talk about the annual report or the year-end report. Andy, did you have anything else?
Yep. The only thing I was going to ask, a comment and then some clarification from Mark. One, I agree with Alderwood. I think this is why we have our general fund balance and why we've saved it up. This is the emergency and typical definition of why I think we have that. But the one thing I was going to mention is, Mark, I had emailed you about delayed utility bills, and you had an explanation as to why we as a city can't delay that. And I think, having that out in the open and in the public, if you can kind of answer that now, I think that would be worthwhile.
Sure. For utility bills, especially for the water, we run it for water tariffs. In our water tariffs, it says once we bill, we have 20 days to collect. We must collect in 20 days. After that, we issue a penalty. Since it's part of our tariffs, we can't change our tariffs right now. We haven't been
Is our tariff what was approved by the PSC?
PSC,
Is that
yeah. So
right?
each water utility has their own tariff. Most of them are all going to be the same as far as the billing. So we're not able to change the billing to extend it. What the PSC has done, there's a water shutoff disconnection. So if you don't pay your bill in 20 days, technically the city could start the process of disconnecting in a normal year. The PSC says we cannot do that. So if you can't make your payment right now, you will not be disconnected during this time period. So we still have to charge the interest penalty, because that's part of the regs, the regulations by the PSC. We can't change that. We'll still have to charge that. But if you don't pay it, we won't disconnect you. So it's kind of like delaying your own payment for water utility.
Is that something we could look into or kind of lobby PSC to implement, is not enacting these fines or these fees?
I mean, I can call them tomorrow and see what they say. I don't know what their process is.
And maybe this is more of a League of Municipalities type of lobby effort, but I feel like we would be the only that might face a few people that can't pay.
Sure. Yeah, we can look into it.
Okay. Okay, do you want to,
Thanks.
do you have anything else, Andy? I guess we need Doug to
Nope.
vote on this. Is Doug out there, Bill? Is Doug out there?
He's in the restroom.
This is a discussion, is it? I don't know if you have to.
Well, we have a motion. Right?
Oh,
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, yeah, we're still,
you voted on that.
Yeah, we have a motion.
we took a motion, but we didn't vote on it because Mark was giving his.
Okay.
Well, as soon as Doug comes back, we will vote on the motion and then, okay, there he is. Do you have anything else to say about the coronavirus?
No.
Planning, okay. I suppose we need a roll call vote for that. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kitzlar,
Aye.
Mayor O'Connor.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, next item is consideration of the 2019 year-end financial report.
Yeah. So I think I just said this was probably one of the best years we've had since I've been here, one of the better years. I just want to say this is not the final one. This is probably 95% done. We haven't been audited, so some changes and some a little bit of cleanup if there is, would be in the general fund side, but it's pretty accurate. I mean, it's give or take 10, 20,000, but it's pretty close to what it's going to be in the end. So in the end, basically, we're going to net. I'm sorry, I can't see very well.
You could turn the lights up a little.
No. In the end, we're about going to be about
Bill, I think you have to do it back there.
600,000 in the plus. I think I mentioned we budgeted a loss of 619,000 in the general fund. We're going to be up 600,000, so it's a swing of $1.2 million.
There's a thing you can push up. No, back there. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mark.
That's all right. So,
Okay,
so
that's-
the reason why the increase, basically the swing at $1.2 million, just a couple things I want to point out here is, and some things that were adjusted in the 2020 budget. License and permits, as we're aware, been talking about this. Building permits were up, and also the were basically the excavation permits, which are the right-of-way permits, were up. So about a $200,000 increase from what we budgeted. Also on fines and forfeiture on page 40. This is one we'll have to adjust. It's another one, a negative one though. We'll probably adjust in 2021 budget. So the reason we're not collecting as much in our court fines, it seems like it's consistently this year too a little bit. We're leveling off. We're on pace, probably the same so far for the first 2 months of where we were last year. A little bit down on that, public charges for services. Here's a big one that we'll have to adjust in the 2021 budget. We'll be short this year in 2020. It's public charges for services, the boat launch fees. As we know, we lost ACE. That's really had a huge impact. We used to collect about 35,000 per year. Now we're down to 16,000.
Have we explored any other, I know Jake had talked about contacting some other
I know he's
businesses,
I've
but
talked to him a couple times about it. I know he's looking at different strategies and what to do. So I know he's trying to think of things to do.
Okay.
We haven't found the
Yeah,
best.
but I had made a note that probably we should talk about that at Parks Board again.
Sure.
Do we sell those permits at City Hall, library?
We do.
Do we advertise it?
I don't know if it's advertised or not. I think Jake probably does.
It's in our, I mean, it's on our website. I think it's in our newsletter.
Yeah, I'm just thinking an actual sign, like a physical,
I believe it's at every boat launch too.
yeah.
yeah. So that people, when they're at City Hall for something else, and they go, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like we ought to do what we can to promote it.
Yeah. The school officer, you can see there's a $10,000 increase. That was just a change in insurance. He actually went from single to family, so the school pays 3/4 of that. As far as that's why they increased their 10,000. Miscellaneous revenues, as you can see, the big one is, and actually, when I was doing this, I realized this is only through November. I do have December's in there. Now it's like 300,000. We increased it, so that's a huge one. Basically, I don't have December's in this number, but if you add December's in, it was about 30,000. It's like 430,000 in 2019. Like I said, we just talked about, but that number is really going to drop. It's really going to drop the way they've been cutting the rates. So we, about $300,000 increase there. And if you go to the next page, 41, you'll see under transfer from TIF, basically $800,796. That is from closing of TIF 2. And also you see transfer from tourism. We didn't budget for it. We changed the budget how we did it now for 2021. For 2020, this is our share that's grandfathered in at 210. And if you saw on page 39, it showed 0 for the public accommodation tax because that's located somewhere else now. So on that, so the expenses, we look at there's a net savings of legal about 21,000. That's one of our best years. We had some kind of highlight some of the savings. If you go to data processing, even though we came in under budget for data processing by 22,000.
Is that IT support?
Yes.
So we ended up not using as much as the extra money as we budgeted for that, are we saying?
I think some of the stuff was actually charged to the capital projects too, because they once you put in the capital, they combine it with capital. So if they're working on a capital item, we allocate it based on where they're working at. So it's kind of a little bit misleading, but it does do it that way. Buildings and plants, we're under 11,000. It's supposed to be 11. I went over the 11. We had some turnover there, staff turnover. Page law enforcement on page 46, 63,000. There, a couple of that is timing when people were hired. We had some turnover, some timing there. Health insurance is, we had 20,000 there. There was some timing there from there also too with, someone from family, and we hired some new people at single. So there, we ended up having a $63,000 increase there. So that's some of the big areas too.
Yeah.
I know I highlighted some of the stuff here. So if you go to dispatch on page 48, emergency communication, again, here we're at about $40,000 savings. One is we did just in the 2020 budget is wages part-time. As you can see, there's 18,000 savings on wages part-time. We did change that in 2020. We had that extra dispatcher that made a huge difference with that. And also health insurance, we had, again, I don't know if it was a new person or if it divorce or somebody. I know that went from family down to single and that. So When you go from family to single, it's a big savings. So you know. So there was about 40,000 there.
Could we just quickly go back to the fire
Yep.
protection? One thing I noted that if you add the firefighter paid on call and the paid on premises
Yep.
budgets, then it's still over budget, but it's 119% instead of 200. You know, it's 207
Oh, yeah.
paid on premises.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. We've tried, you know, I know at finance, you know, we've tried to kind of get that reined in,
Yeah.
and
And I think it's for the new fire chief. I think for
Right.
this next year, especially with the year we have in,
yeah,
that's something that's going to have to be
if it's going to be
monitored.
that far out of line, then we need to have a budget amendment request.
And we did change the budget for 2020, so I'll have to see
Yeah.
kind of where we're at.
Okay.
I guess I should want to down underneath that for some inspections. You know, we're 32,000 over budget, but it's related to the revenue side, which correlates. But that's something maybe we need to look at is if we don't have any big projects, do we cut back a little bit on their time? You know, we're driving all the way
Right.
from Portage. You got a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
And I think when we went with them, we thought in the future,
Yeah.
once the riverfront was done and everything, we probably would.
So I don't know, maybe now we tighten them for a little bit until we get through all this virus. So you can see a lot of, so just on the very end, just on page 51 again, I just want to show that, you know, it's 587,000. But a couple little things that we done, I think we're right around 600,000 for that. So that's again a swing of 1.2. If you go to page 56, it's the library. 56. We show a net loss of 6,500 with that. A lot of it was some health insurance, and that was some retirees. So we had some retirees, then we had some new people that came in who weren't taking health insurance, and they left. Now they are taking health insurance. So it was one of the things we don't budget for them retiring during the year and hiring, you know, change their workload with that. Page 58, it says media still, but it should be cable TV. We have a net gain there about 6,400 for that fund. Page 61, which is I call it Fund 204, which is the community center, rec, pool, and the senior center. So that we show at the very end of basically $11,000 net gain. And so I kind of break it down because it's hard to tell, you know, what's revenues is the senior center, which is the rec. So if you go to page 86 on here, it kind of breaks it down by each different category. So community center, $1,100. This one's up a little bit more too. Talking with Jake, when they do the after-school care, they are charging a portion basically for rent to the community center, which
okay.
is why that's up a little bit more. Recreation in the very end, we end up at $5,500. In the positive senior center, $3,500, and then the pool, even though it was a great year, we didn't have any very rain days. We lost basically $9,600. So, but in total, the three together is $10,720. With that, and that's what they call the way before I was here it was set up as a lapsing fund. So what ended up happening is once this is all finalized during the audit, that $10,000 will be transferred into the general fund. So if there's a loss, we would transfer money in to cover it, but this year it will be transferred in. It's
Okay.
positive. A couple things that maybe when they start looking at this is kind of things I'm talking about. You know, if you go to page 59, we'll have to figure out. I know I've talked to Jake a couple times. One of my concerns is like this 59. There's special event revenues. You know, we got 36,000 of revenues. Then you go to the 60 special expense, and then the rec department. We got special Special events expenditures of $45,000 was $46,000. So if you kind of match those up, you're taking about a $9,000 loss. And that's some of that stuff I'm talking about. It gets covered up by the after-school care, and that's what we were talking
Right.
about before. So little things like that is the things I'll be, be monitoring, things like that, because that's some of the impact that's going to be felt.
And are you currently in your accounting for the after-school care, is that all broken out as a separate fund or something now, rather than still having it in recreation?
We still have
or
the
whatever?
recreation, but we have separate lines for them now.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
would like that to be simpler to understand.
Just a couple of things. I know we're getting close to.
Yeah, we're actually a little
Or
over
over.
the time.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's two little things I just want to mention is on page 62, EMS fund. We were up gaining 21,000 in tourism. That's on page 64. The tourism revenue is down $10,000 from last year. And then page 66, solid waste. For some reason, this printout gets screwed up. If you look at, I had circle number 1, basically took a $30,000 loss, and that's related to the public charges for service. And so one of the questions I had is, since it's a separate fund, now it's going to be negative, because it's basically right around zero. If it's okay for me to transfer the negative, or to cover it from the general fund, I don't know if I probably need to come back with a budget amendment for that, to zero that, to cover that loss. So that's all I have.
Okay.
So I know we're over time, but I had one question on the library.
Yeah.
The page 55. Because there were a couple, at least 2 retirements,
Yeah.
did they get if there were sick leave payouts,
Yeah.
does that show up here?
Yeah, it's part of the health insurance payout. So that's
Okay.
part of that. It's also part of the, so it's part of hiring some, they didn't have, so that's, yes, that is correct. So part of that is switching from no insurance, and then part of it is also their sick leave getting put into a 401, the 457 plan. That's where that goes. Pay through this health insurance.
Okay. We must have anticipated those retirements to have the budget seems,
Yeah,
but that still doesn't seem like enough.
we're about $10,000, $12,000 over in that fund. So
Yeah,
one of them was basically down to zero. They didn't get much of a payout.
okay.
One had a little bit larger payout. I think one's, I'm looking at that
So we don't actually have that money set aside?
one. No, not for that
All right, thanks.
Andrew, did you have any questions?
I had a few very minor ones that I'll just email Mark later on.
Okay. Do we usually vote to accept this?
one. It's usually just a discussion of it.
Okay, okay. Brian has suggested that we vote to adopt the bills, and then if you have any questions, to send an email
Yeah.
later, June.
Okay, I don't have any questions.
So would one of you like to make a
I'll
motion?
move to- I'll move to accept the accounts payable checks.
Second?
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Those are accepted. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor,
Second.
say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, Brian.
B.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, I would like to call to order the Monday, March 16th meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Thomas.
Here.
Alder Groupie.
Here.
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Kitzler.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Alder Court. Here. Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the United States
of
United States.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 2nd meeting?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any changes or additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. We have three proclamations listed under appearances. We are going to postpone the proclamation recognizing Scott Sullivan until a later date. The first one is a proclamation recognizing April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day in the city of Monona. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas the city of Monona has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices, now therefore I, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor of the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 24th, 2020 as Arbor Day in the city of Monona. Excuse me, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodland. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Signed in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, the 16th day of March 2020, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor. And the second proclamation recognizes May 9th, 2020 as International Migratory Bird Day in the city of Monona. And as you know, we are a bird city. Whereas migratory birds are some of the most beautiful and easily observed wildlife in our communities, and whereas many citizens recognize and welcome migratory songbirds as symbolic harbingers of spring, and whereas these migrant species also play an important economic role in our community, controlling insect pests and generating millions in recreation dollars statewide, and whereas migratory birds and their habitats are declining throughout the Americas, facing a growing number of threats on their migration routes and in both their summer and winter homes, and whereas since 1993, International Migratory Bird Day, IMBD, has become a primary vehicle for focusing public attention on the nearly 350 species that travel between nesting habitats in our communities and throughout North America and their wintering grounds in South and Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean, and the southern U.S. And whereas hundreds of thousands of people will observe IMBD gathering in town squares, community centers, schools, parks, and nature centers to learn about birds, take action to conserve them, and simply to have fun, now therefore be it resolved that I, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor, do hereby proclaim May 9th, 2020 as International Migratory Bird Day in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, and I urge all citizens to celebrate this observance and to support efforts to protect and conserve migratory birds and their habitats in our community and the world at large. Signed in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, the 16th day of March, 2020, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor. Thank you. There is no public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. We have two items under unfinished business. Under G1A, consideration of Resolution 20-3-2395, purchase approval of radio system upgrade put forth by the Public Safety Committee.
Move approval.
Second.
Brian, were you going to?
Yeah, no changes from our last discussion at the last council meeting. This was approved by the Public Safety Committee, and staff recommends approval.
Any questions? Concerns? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Quirk.
Aye.
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Alder Groupie.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Kitzlar.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Item 1B, consideration of Resolution 20-3-2396, award of bid for the McKenna Road Improvement Project, put forth by the Public Works Committee.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, Brian?
Members of the council, this item was approved, received a recommendation of approval from the Public Works Committee at their March 4th meeting. Their approval did include the requirement that the inspection hours be adjusted as needed up to 100 hours for the project, but other than that, Public Works Department is supportive of this contractor, as is contracted city engineering staff.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Doug?
So adjusting the inspection hours, that's not part of the bid? Or did,
I can just take that. So the inspection hours are part of the bid, and we have 100% coverage for anything underground. But one of the members of the committee asked that because the bids were so divergent, this one was so much lower than the others. There were concerns about potentially, corners being cut, and so they wanted to make sure that we had enough inspection to make sure that the job was getting done properly.
but the inspections would be done by Strand, wouldn't they?
Correct.
Okay.
And this is just if necessary, we would have the ability to
Right. Okay.
bill for an additional 100 hours of inspection.
Anyone else? Not sure if we lost somebody there. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Quirk.
Aye.
Alder Thomas. Aye. Alder Groupie.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Kitzlar.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to new business, we are going to postpone items 2A through E because Parks Director Anderson is not able to be with us this evening. So did we want to, do you think we want to do the discussion first, or should we move into closed session and do the discussion afterwards?
Let's do this item first.
Okay. Then discussion and consideration of staffing and city operations contingency plans for COVID-19. And I guess this is, do we want it immediate? It's not started for immediate approval, but
It's not, but there is an item that I would request council consider out of order.
okay, so we need a motion. Is there a motion then to take that
Motion to move take this item out of order.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve this?
We need it.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay.
What?
I was going to say we need Brian to explain what the proposal is.
Well, right, but I thought after we had the motion, maybe
Yeah,
you would explain
usually,
it.
right. I don't think we knew, and if you weren't at finance, you wouldn't necessarily know what the plan is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to do things in order, and usually I forget. This
Right.
time I did, and it was wrong, so I...
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll start off my comments tonight just to outline the two requested action items from the council, and then I'll get into more detail about the various things that have been going on in the last couple of months. The first action item I'm requesting this evening is draft resolution 20-3-2401. That's declaring a state of emergency. I'm handing that out, and I've emailed that copy to Alders, Kitzler, and Groupie. And the second item, which I'll get into in more detail in a moment, is approval of a staffing plan to pay all employees, full-time, part-time, seasonal, et cetera, their regular wages. This has been amended by Finance and Personnel Committee to go from 2 weeks to now 3 weeks, and so we'll get into that in just a moment as well. So those are the two action items that I'm asking come out of tonight's council meeting. So first and foremost, just to kind of lay out what's been going on over the last couple of weeks and days. As you can imagine, There's been a lot going on, as there has been all over Dane County and across the state and across the nation as it relates to COVID-19. In the draft resolution that's in front of you, I've laid out the various other agency declarations that have been put out there in terms of as it relates to responses to this public health crisis. Just for the record, I'll briefly review kind of where we're at with all those. So the state of Wisconsin had emergency declaration Executive Order 72 on March 12th. In addition, the state ordered closure of all statewide schools by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, March 18th. There was a federal declaration of a national emergency, which triggered the Stafford Act on March 13th. Dane County Public Health had an order and a moratorium on mass gatherings of 50 or more people on March 15th. Monona Grove School District ordered to close all of their schools immediately as of yesterday, March 15th. And then today, Dane County declared a state of emergency as well on March 16th. And locally, the Monona City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 54-7, provides for local emergency declarations. So that's just all a matter of kind of legal context for the situation that we find ourselves in. That being said, I've said this before in my communications to the council, in a public health emergency, really the council and staff and all parties involved in the municipality, our main goal is to serve as a conduit of factual information for our residents and visitors. We really don't have any role in kind of the public health aspect of this emergency. It's just our job to serve as a conduit of information. So to that end, the city has established a separate web page on mymonona.com. It's mymonona.com/coronavirus. We've created that to serve as a landing page for additional information about this public health emergency as we receive it. So if you go on the page today, you'll see a number of different links and notices on various activity that's been going on since last week. We update this page daily as new information becomes available. We've also been utilizing our social media networks to spread information as widely as possible. We've been recording multiple PSAs on WVMO radio as new information becomes available. And we've utilized the emergency alert email listserv system to provide timely information to residents as well. On this website, we've had links to the Monona Grove School District and their information, and we'll likely add other state information such as the Department of Public Health, Dane County Public Health, and others as we go forward through this emergency. As you probably saw from the communications over this past weekend, we've had to make the hard choice to close a number of city facilities and programs indefinitely. So just to recap for the record and for the public, the Monona Community Center is closed effective immediately. All park and rec programs and classes are canceled until further notice. The Monona After School program is closed until further notice. All scheduled meetings and reservations at the community center are also canceled until further notice. And all city park shelters will remain closed until further notice. The Monona Library is closed to the public as of yesterday at 5 p.m. March 15th until further notice, which includes all programs and events and meeting room reservations. The Monona Senior Center is also closed and all programs are canceled until further notice. The Public Works facility is open and operational, but closed to public visitation. Utility staff will not be conducting in-home visits during the period of this response. City Hall remains open to the public. However, we'd like to encourage residents and users to conduct as much of their business over the phone and email as possible to help limit the number of in-person interactions that have to occur in City Hall. And there is one big caveat to that we'll get to in just a moment that relates to the spring election. And municipal court will be rescheduling as much of its current docket as possible until May. So in terms of specific city operations, there's a couple of updates and items I want to bring the council up to date on. First, it's my strong recommendation that the city council committee chairs strongly consider canceling any non-essential community meetings until further notice to limit the additional in-person contacts, particularly those that would have an impact on staff. That's going to have to be an individual decision that the committee chairs are going to have to make, but again, it'd be my recommendation that we take a hard look at canceling those that we do not have to have. In addition, to help reduce the number of in-person visits at City Hall, we're reviewing what types of licenses and permits we might be able to delay or address online in order to reduce the number of walk-in visits to the building. And we're trying to stock as much cleaning and disinfectant material in the facilities as possible, understanding that obviously there's a wide demand for that. So some of those materials may become hard to come by over the next couple of weeks. We've requested that building inspections and code enforcement refrain from entering any residents or structures for inspections during this period. Exterior inspections are still okay and will be occurring, and we're waiting on additional guidance from the Wisconsin Department of Safety and Public Services on how they want to handle inspection requests going forward. So I mentioned the April election. The clerk and other staff have been in constant communications with the Wisconsin Election Commission. Their guidance as of today was that the spring election will occur as scheduled. There and the county clerks are encouraging everyone to vote via mailed absentee ballot, if possible, in order to reduce the number of in-person voting. And obviously, if we, as expected, are getting an increase in requests in the number of absentee ballots, so that will inevitably lead to an increase in the turnaround time for staff getting ballots mailed out. So I just want the council to be aware of that our staff is doing the best they can under these circumstances as it relates to absentee ballot requests. And that there is a statewide concern over the amount of ballot envelopes that are available given the demand for mailed absentee ballots across the state. So it's something that we're trying to look at options to get additional envelopes here as well. So the big item that I want to talk about tonight is staffing during the city's response to COVID. So as you can expect, many staff are anxious about this whole situation. Just there's a lot of unknowns, and we understand that. The most frequent questions we've been getting over the last few days are, if my building or department is closed, will I still get paid? What if I or a family member happen to test positive for the virus? What's the situation there? And what if my daycare or child care arrangements happen to change because of the virus? So we, as the administrative staff and department heads, are definitely sensitive to these concerns during this difficult time for all of our employees, regardless of if they're part-time, full-time, or seasonal. And I think it's important to be as accommodating as possible during this, what is for sure a unique and unexpected situation. So as such, and with the recommendation of the Finance and Personnel Committee earlier this evening, I am recommending to the City Council your support of the following staffing accommodations plan, which also has department head support from earlier today. First, we would provide standard pay for all employees, regardless of classification, be it full-time, part-time, seasonal, etc., for the next 3 weeks, based upon their current schedules or average of their regular schedules, if that's the case, regardless if their department is currently open or closed. If an employee were to test positive or for any other reason need to be confined for a 2-week period, those 2 weeks, or whatever period it would be, would not count against their paid time off balances. Third, if employees' daycare or child care situations would change because of COVID and require them to remain home to care for their children, the time off would not count towards their PTO balances for the next 3 weeks. There's a general concern among department heads about requiring employees who would be considered high risk for COVID exposure to report to city facilities. So where feasible, department heads will allow employees to work remotely or telecommute for those that have the capabilities or appropriate job responsibilities. And where feasible and safe, department heads may ask some staff members to report to city facilities to work on projects that don't require general public contact until such time as the emergency declarations are lifted, with the understanding that in doing so, we'd also want to make sure we're maintaining the proper social distancing in the various facilities. So, for example, if we were to ask library staff to come to the library to work on inventory, we do so in such a manner that we would not be requiring them all to be congregated in one spot to do that. I'll leave that up to the department head's discretion to figure out how to best organize that particular or those projects. So this is a fluid situation, and we may need to extend these accommodations after this initial 3-week period. So we would come back to you when the council meets as a full body again on April 6th and provide an additional update as to where we're at in the situation. The one caveat in this whole situation is there is a federal proposal for a 2-week pay plan for employees kind of across the board. However, that has not yet been taken up by the Senate, so we're just in a wait-and-see mode on that as well. So maybe I'll take a pause for a moment and take any questions you might have about this accommodations plan, and then we can address the resolution 20-3, 2401 as a separate item.
Questions?
Yeah.
Alder Moore?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. First of all, thank you to the city staff, to Leah, to everyone, for department heads for putting this together. And second, I just want to emphasize one thing that you quickly went through in your reading, which was really strongly encourage all residents to sign up for the emergency alert system by going to mymonona.com, because this is a fluid situation and it's very fast moving, as is evident from all of the decisions that are coming out virtually on an hourly, if not daily basis. The easiest way for us to be able to keep everyone informed is to use that alert system. I know that at least some of us are on Facebook and have tried our best to cycle out that information to our networks, but that network is not the city network, and so I'd really encourage everyone to sign up for that system.
Alderwood?
Well, one, I wanted to second Alder Moore's comments, thanking the staff, in particular Leah, for keeping us informed, and Brian and everybody. It's an unprecedented situation. And my question had to do with the election. If you request an absentee ballot, what is the deadline to request that? First question.
April 2nd.
The deadline for mail-out is the 2nd. You should, 2nd of April. You can request one sooner, obviously. Be a better idea for mail turnaround.
Okay. And then if you when you mail it back in, and if it does not arrive by the date of the election, is that still counted?
No, it is not. It has to be in by election day.
Okay.
So the best bet for everyone is to request early.
Okay. And is it correct that you have to provide a form of photo identification with the
Yes, if you have
application?
not requested an absentee ballot by mail before, where you provided photo ID, you will need to provide a copy of photo ID. Right now, a lot of people are getting on the My Vote Wisconsin website, and you follow the process on that website, and it gets you to where you can attach a photo ID, and that's working out real well.
And then that just comes,
And that comes directly to me via email.
okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Photo ID, I want to emphasize, is a document. I've gotten some really cute vacation pictures, but I love them, but I need a document.
Anyone else? Alder Court?
If people don't request their absentee ballot by the 2nd, are we still wanting them to absentee ballot in person at City Hall versus going to the polling place?
The last day to vote in person is April 3rd, and they can do that if they choose.
Which would be Saturday morning, correct?
Friday.
Oh, it's Friday.
Friday by 5.
Oh, okay. Anyone else?
So
Brian?
maybe before we get to the resolution, it would be appropriate to entertain a motion on the staffing plan, just so I know that council support for that. And then we can
Do we have to pull anything off the table that I mistakenly asked for before?
Yeah, there's a motion pending on the resolution for the emergency declaration. Would it not be appropriate to hear that resolution before the staffing plan?
Yeah.
Given-
Is it for that, though, or is it for just this entire discussion that they get covered? All of this?
I heard the motion to be to approve resolution 20-3-2401, so it'd just be this.
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll come back to the other one. So then just for the council's information, the resolution 20-3-2401, again, all this resolution does is just declare a local state of emergency. That's in keeping with the other declarations, particularly in the county, Dane County's declaration earlier today. All this really does is kind of sets up the legal framework that we could request for reimbursement from FEMA or other governmental bodies should the need arise as it relates to our response.
Any further discussion or questions on that? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Then, Brian, would you like?
Yeah, then I request a motion from
I'll
council.
move approval of the staff plan.
I'll second.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Staff plan is approved. Thank you. Okay, next, convening, is there a motion to convene in closed session under Wisconsin statute section 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session, and this is related to two issues, San Damiano and city public safety facility siting. So is there a motion?
So move. Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
I'm sorry. Yes, Alder Kitzler,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Coor,
Aye.
Alder Thomas,
Aye.
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye. Okay, we are in closed session. So Brian, do you want to mention to them about our discuss, I don't know if they heard much of the discussion about it being confidential. Okay. Okay, we are back in open session.
Need to open a
The
door.
door also.
Oh, yeah.
The door.
Door.
To the dark room.
Yeah,
Is that-
right.
Things still holding the door open, I assume?
So I would make a motion to approve the agreement with, feasibility study for a capital campaign to purchase, protect, and renovate the San Damiano property as a public asset with
I think development.
Oh, that is-
conservation. Oh, that's true. We need to suspend the rules. I'm sorry. Is there a motion to suspend the
Move to
rules?
suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Doug.
Good, I'll start over then.
Give you a little time to think there.
I'll move approval of a feasibility study to be done for planning a capital campaign to purchase, protect, and renovate the San Damiano property as a public asset by Development for Corporation LLC in an amount not to exceed $14,300 plus travel expenses.
Development for conservation, John.
Yeah.
Did I say?
Corporation.
Development for Conservation is the correct name.
Okay. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to ask for other comments. Nancy, do you want to restate your?
Yes, given that the development that I'm very familiar with development for conservation, and in fact, David Allen, its principal, is a business partner of mine in another business, another LLC. I'm recusing myself from this vote.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore is recused, sorry. Alder Kitzler,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Core,
Aye.
Alder Thomas, Alder Groupie.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to reports. Alder Core?
Just a note of thanks to all city staff for all of their extra efforts in this unprecedented situation. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay. Alder Thomas?
There was a zoning board meeting for this Thursday that has been canceled. The public safety meeting for this month is canceled.
Alder Groupie?
I second Alder Core's sentiments, thanking the staff, and also wanted to just make an additional note that the candidate forum for Sunday has been moved totally online. So those of you who are planning on attending, just plan on tuning in on the Monona Community Media YouTube channel, or there are some other options as well to view the forum.
Okay, and I think we'll be doing more promoting of that, and we're also asking people to email their questions in now, since they won't be here to ask the questions in person. And we'll also have some predetermined questions. So, anything else? Okay.
No other report.
Okay, Alder Kitzler.
No report.
Alder Moore.
The Sustainability Committee continues to plan for the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, which is the 22nd of April, with a number of activities. Our activities specifically related to e-cycling and recycling And we are coordinating our efforts with numerous other organizations and departments throughout the city, all of the library, Park and Rec, etc. Our activities are socially distant for the most part. And yet, suffice to say, we will be very cognizant of what's happening in our world right now, but look for that. Look for news on that on our website again, mymonona.com, and on Facebook, Sustainable Monona, as we continue to roll those activities out over the next month, and certainly with PSAs on WVMO. We continue to roll out those activities or roll them back up again if we're not able to roll them out as we'd like. So thank you.
Alder Wood.
Parks Board met last week. Actually, a lot of what we discussed is going to be carried on to the next council meeting. Other than that, I have no report.
Okay, City Attorney?
I would just reiterate that other than 2 scheduled trials, all initial appearances and pre-trials in Monona Municipal Court will be rescheduled into May. So if anybody has a appearance in March or April, you should contact the municipal court, but you would otherwise receive a notice from them rescheduling your court date.
City Clerk?
We did have about 200 or more absentee voters come in, mailed out today, absentee votes mailed out, and about 55 who came in person. So we've been very busy. We are sanitizing the areas frequently throughout the day and ourselves, washing our hands, and we do have the glass wall. We are trying to be careful in our contact with voters, but voters are being served the way that we're required to serve via state law. So please feel free to come to City Hall and vote. And but we do urge mail-out balloting if it's at all possible for you, and we're happy to help. Give us a call, but we do need that photo ID. Get on the My Vote Wisconsin website to do that request. And also, you have until Wednesday to register to vote. After Wednesday, you will need to come in person to register to vote.
And that's this Wednesday, correct?
This Wednesday, yes. So you need to come, otherwise you'll need to come in person to register to vote either at City Hall or at the polls on Election Day. So we urge you to do that also online or mail it in or however you want to do it. That's it.
And Joan, you're going to have some additional voting hours for people who want to come into City Hall, correct?
Yes, that's been publicized, and I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but it will be a Wednesday prior to the election, 2 Wednesday evenings, I should say, and then the Saturday, the week before the election. So those dates, again, I don't have the dates off the top of my head. They are publicized.
And they could find that at the city clerk page or the election page?
They're on the website, yes, and it's been published in the Herald Independent.
Okay. Mr. Gatto.
No report beyond what I've already given tonight.
Okay. I had a couple things. I would also like to thank the staff and Brian. We were going back and forth with people all weekend, and it's been a crazy couple days, and everything changes about every 2 hours. So really appreciate people trying to keep up with it all. I'd also like to thank Alder Kitzler and Alder Wood for kind of tag teaming and serving as acting mayor. Well, I've been gone quite a bit recently, so I appreciate that. I have not checked with Leah in the last couple of days, but if you have not sent her, I've gotten some emails from alders about their committee reappointments, but I haven't heard about all of them. So if you have not sent those to Leah or myself, I'd really appreciate it if you could do it soon in terms of who we should reappoint to the committee and who's interested and who's not, because I'd like to get something on the website soon about open committee positions to give people a chance to apply. As you know, we like to do most of those appointments, however many as we can, at the reorganizational meeting, which will be I think the 18th of April, or no, 21st, I think, maybe. Again, the candidate forum, the school board one, I think, is from 1:30 to 3 this coming Sunday, and followed by the city council forum from 3:30 to 5. Please tune in to WVM or to the city YouTube channel. I think it's also going to be broadcast on the cable channel. And I'm sure that they will be replaying the forum, and you'll also be able to watch it on YouTube in weeks to come. So we're hoping everybody can get a chance, who wants to get a chance to see it. The main other thing is, if you have questions about what the city's doing or anything else related to the coronavirus, please, we've set up a separate webpage, as City Administrator Gatto mentioned before. If you go out to mymonona.com, there's some little boxes with city news and announcements, and one of those choices is our coronavirus website. If you'd like to be notified about anything that comes up with coronavirus, click on Notify Me, which I think is in the upper right-hand corner, and you can sign up to be notified for emergency alerts about that, or whatever committee notifications you want to know about. I think Leah said that they had 700 visits
To that page.
to the coronavirus page yesterday, I think. So I'm glad that people are using it. So that's everything I have. There are no appointments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you.